Hey guys, so of course we just had a ban list earlier today, and so I just sort of wanted to do a tier list of, mapping out some of the best decks post ban list, and I'm actually gonna really look forward to hearing your guys' comments to try to, improve this tier list in terms of, what decks should we shift things around, just because obviously I'm not gonna be an expert in every single deck, really far from that, but nonetheless, I'll try to take my stab at it, and definitely big thanks to all my friends as well, who've helped me kind of with all their input as well. So I think in terms of, like the best decks, I think it's, Labrynth really, you have to argue, is up there. And I think one of the things with, the balance is, aside from Konami trying to balance out the game as at least to the way they think is best, but of course, I think it's pretty clear that a lot of times these decisions are also based on like marketing reasons in terms of products, and of course we have transaction rollback coming out soon, and Labyrinth, it's gonna go really well with that deck, and they did not get any kind of direct hit. They didn't even get any indirect hits, like let's say like D-Barrier, that's still around, and of course Purrely got hit, and that was kind of primarily what D-Barrier is for, but in a sense, Branded didn't get hit at all, so maybe there's still going to be a reason to play D-Barrier, and of course Labyrinth plays it better than any other deck. Another, I think, huge winner from this rather ban list is Mannadium. Surprisingly did not get any kind of hit, and I say surprisingly because they hit some of these other decks, like let's say like Rika or even Circular, which is super random in terms of banning it, and you don't hit decks like Mannadium, and we'll also get the Branded as well. So I think that's kind of insane that this deck was left untouched. Of course, Triff has been doing really well with this deck, and I've been quite innovating in terms of deck lists, so definitely go check them out, of course, if you're interested in picking this deck up, because it's of course going to be really strong continuing. So next, let's move on to Branded. We're going to just cover both Despia and Chimera. I'm actually going to put it at 1.5 for now. I think, again, I'm really shocked that with them hitting so many cards on this ban list, they didn't hit Branded at all, especially at the very least Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. That is something that should be banned. Don't get me wrong, I've been Gimmick Puppet locking people for like 10 months straight now at this point, but even then, I do think it should be banned. I think especially because it's quite a popular deck in a lot of instances. I think it's, it's fair to assume that at the very least, even if it may not actually be that strong, like a lot of people will still give it a shot again, just because how it was left untouched, and it can still be, especially left uninterrupted, can be very strong. And Chimera, of course, is a little bit more consistent than Despia, and also has a lot more non-engine space as well, which makes it always quite flexible. Rescue Ace, I think we still have to put it here as the best decks, whether it's like over Mannadium or not, I'm not too sure. I'm not going to be too fussy about it in terms of the order within each tier, but Rescue Ace, of course, Airlifter got put to 1, which does suck, but especially like in January, I guess it kind of depends on which time frame you're talking about, like there's still going to be like Bonfire and, other kind of like fire support early next year as well, which will also get to Fire Kings, and that's still going to help them out a lot. So I think Rescue Ace, considering some of the hits that other decks have gotten with today's ban list, I think Rescue Ace is still in a pretty good spot, and I think is still worthy at like kind of like that tier 1 spot. Sprite, this one's interesting. I think, getting, of course, this is another deck that I've been playing for quite a while. I love the deck. I think getting started to 3 is nice. It's a good consistency booster, but it's not something that, it's not going to catapult them all the way back to tier 1 like its old days, right? I mean, it's still going to be a hard one to turn. There's a lot of different Sprite variants, including with Runic, of course. So I think for now, I'm still hesitant. I know it had a couple YCS tops in the most recent event. It was like Sprite Purrely though, but they're still kicking around. They're still solid. They're definitely at least tier 2, perhaps 1.5. But I think for now I would put it there. Vanguard Soul is another one. I think usually is like top of Rogue, but always kind of sneaks in multiple or at least one YCS top pretty consistently. So I would actually put it at tier 2 just because it didn't get any direct hits, even including like Fenrir, right, which is nice in Vanquish Soul because it can add like a Earth or a Fire, which is always nice. They also have Shifter, which did not get hit for some reason, and then of course they did get, there can be only one hit to 1. I mean, obviously they're not completely relying on that though. It's not like it's searchable or anything. So I think Vanquish Soul is still pretty solid. Again, no like direct hits to it, so might as well just at least stay where it was. Infernoble is interesting. I think, despite the Zolde ban, I mean, I was kind of looking at like how the duelist groups and the Infernoble duelist groups are faring. I think they're still pretty confident in this deck. I mean, let's just, I guess it would be like bottom of tier 2. Let's just put Best of Rogue for now just to be safe. But you know what? I think I'm sure they can find a way to work things out despite that ban. And, it can still be, I'm sure, fairly competent. Fire King, this one's interesting. So for now, let's put it tier 1.5. Again, I think it kind of depends on which time frame we're speaking of, because if we're going for, let's say, you know, post like a maze in your bonfire, like yeah, obviously it's gonna be in the best deck conversation. I think right now, let's just say just immediately post ban list, I think you would still put it at like 1.5. It was actually getting a decent amount of YCS tops in the recent event, and so I think it's only going to get better, much better actually, especially early next year. So Fire Kings, you're in a really good position right now. So hopefully you picked up those structure decks already. Let's cover Mathmech though. I don't know why they banned Circular. It was super weird, especially considering some of the other hits that they've done. Or rather, the hits that they did not do were some of the other top decks. So unfortunately, I think Mathmech has just become like really awful position. Unfortunately, we're just gonna put in this like other rogue section, maybe at the bottom of that at this point. Centurion is another one that's I would put it at tier 2. I mean, you could kind of argue maybe flip the branded decks with the Centurion. It also had, I think, had equal representation at top cut, I believe, at Bologna. Of course, I think Fire Kings is only going to get better. I'm sure Centurion will also get better too. Like usually like those side deck building sets, like they kind of get like another wave of support, and that's where they get really good, right? But Centurion is already actually good even with this initial wave of release. So I think it's, you know, Calamity Lock that did not get touched. So Centurion still, I don't think anything really has changed for them, which is good. At the very least, I'm sure they're at least at tier 2. I'm sure can only move forward up higher. Flunder, I'm actually still gonna put it at best of rogue. I know some could argue maybe tier 2. Again, like from a YCS topping standpoint, it actually has not done that well lately. From a regional level though, obviously it does still get topped. I mean, Shifter did not get hit, you know, of course Featherstorm, and nothing but Flunder really got hit, right? But at the same time, Tearlaments got knocked out a lot, and of course Shifter has like the biggest impact on that deck, and that's kind of out of the mix. For Flunder, I mean, you know, at the very least it will be like a strong rogue deck, maybe tier 2. So this is where I would put it. Runic, okay, so this picture, let's just say represents, you know, kind of that Runic Bestial Synchro that Joshua Schmidt won YCS with. And not Runic Stun, because obviously they just got like those floodgates hit to one. I'm not even going to bother talking about that one. I think the Runic Synchro Bestial, however you call it, I think it will still be in this really good spot as well. Of course, didn't get any hits for the Runic stuff, which is a little surprising. Bestials in general, especially if Labrynth, you know, becomes like it remains as like a really strong deck. You know, Bestials of course can be very good against them in terms of, you know, not only just banishing their monsters, which they really don't have like any in-engine way to recover, but just also to be able to disrupt like the lady from being able to set a trap, just serving as quick effect body. So I think that's also in a good spot as well. Some other bunch of rogue decks, I think like stuff like, you know, Punk, Salamangreat, Dark World. If you watch like my recent rogue tier list by the data video, you know, they have like, at least for Dark World and Punk, they have one top, at least that is known. Silent, surprisingly, I don't think has actually had any tops, regional tops, post-Silent Smashers for this one, but you know what, it's still there. I mean, I guess I should put Mathmech at the bottom though. I gotta continue to move those down. And then you have something like Makonko. This one's also interesting. I think this actually still belongs in, you know, obviously the going first build has taken hit because of the Zolde ban, but you know, there are also a good amount of players playing like a blind second, OTK kind of like Makonko strategy, which you can also check out that Makonko survey video I did of Makonko players and all the different builds that are available. And for them, you know, of course, they were never really relying on the Zolde anyways, like those going second builds, and you know, Makonko's still pretty strong. And you know what, they actually got Snatch Steal, which is actually like in terms of equip spells, like, you know, what better could you ask for it to come back? So I think that's in a pretty cool spot. So I think you can't underestimate Makonko. I'm sure they'll figure it out. Some other decks, actually, let's go with whatchamacallit, Orcus. I don't know about this one yet. I mean, I think at the beginning, especially when the ban list, you know, comes into effect, a lot of people, I'm sure, are going to try Orcus, some form of Orcus variant, like Sky Striker Orcus, for example. That was really popular, which, fun fact, was actually kind of created by, like, Milano the Duelist, that is. So let's just put it in other rogue for now. I'm going to be a little bit skeptical. Hopefully it actually is really good, and you can argue like best of rogue, but you know, obviously we don't have anything to rely on in terms of events so far, so let's just put it there now. But again, feel free to really put in the comments, you know, how we should shift this around. Certainly I'm looking for all your inputs. Pendulum Magician is another deck I would put in like the other rogue section. This actually had at least one regional top recently as well. I think, you know, it did get some new support in like Age of Overlord. I think it is really cool. It does still play into like Nibiru Droll, though, from what I understand, at least from my experience, in my limited experience playing against the deck, I have always really loved Pendulum Magicians. It's a deck I played a while back when I first started playing as well. I really do love the deck, but I think it's still kind of hard to put it as, you know, at the same level at Rogue as like something like at least like Flunder and Makanko, at least for now. Tri-Brigade, this one's interesting, I think. Because of the existence of Fire King stuff, I think we can kind of put in the best of Rogue. I think there's some hope there. It's been doing well. It's so far, at least especially online as well, if you watch that Rogue tier list by the data video. And actually, you can recently check out that deck profile I posted actually earlier today before the ban list came out with my friend Tom, aka ZipperYGO. He posted shared a Fire King Tri-Brigade deck list, and it still works post ban list because nothing got a hit. So you can definitely go check that out as well. Virtual World, this is another deck I think deserves some recognition if you watch that Rogue tier list by the data video. They actually have been, thanks to Ivan, who keeps track of all those regional tops, by the way. Also, that should be in the video description. You know, Virtual World's actually been getting some tops here and there. Some good synchro stuff going on right now, and so I think, especially, I guess, I don't know if they all do the Calamity Lock. I'm sure they can figure out a way to do it, knowing Virtual World in their past with like VFD. But I think this is a deck that you also have to give some credit for. Exorcister, normally I think you would put like best of Rogue. So far, post-Valent Smashers, they actually have not had any kind of regional success from at least what's publicly known. So we'll just put it here for now. Hopefully you're not too offended. I'm sure they can figure out a way to get back in there. Sword Soul is another one I think we can put in like, you know, competitive Rogue, right? Especially with, I guess, like Pot of Desires came back to 3, which is always nice. That's something that they've definitely been known quite well to, you know, play. And when it first got limited, it was like super random, and then went to 2, and now I guess it's finally back to 3. You can never really underestimate Sword Soul. It's like as solid as the deck comes. Usually pretty good budget-wise as well. Marincess is another one I think we can put as like, you know, best of Rogue, competitive Rogue, especially, you know, it did get a YCS top most recently, and it continues to do that every now and then throughout this entire year. So again, I think if you know how to pilot the deck well, it's clearly shown pretty good success as well. Rika, this is another interesting one to say the least in terms of ban list hits. Definitely got multiple hits. So right now, obviously not in a good situation. I believe there are some Aroma support coming out. I think it was Phantom Nightmare, which should be early next year as well. So I think with that, you know, they have some glimmer of hope down the line. I guess like right now, you know, January 1st, as of this ban is coming into effect, probably not the best spot. Purrely, you know, let's also put this in tier 2, somewhere within, you know, you could probably shuffle these around. I think Sleepy Memory to 2, obviously it's a hit that I guess maybe a lot of people expected in terms of, you know, just being able to draw like 6 upwards of that was kind of crazy. And the bigger impact of like that being put to 2 though is the fact that essentially there's no guarantee anymore to get, you know, a Sleepy Memory off of my friend Purrely, right? So that I'm sure it can definitely affect things as well. So for now, and Purrely was actually kind of on recently a decline in terms of like YCS level tops anyways, but I think for now you at least put them at the very least tier 2. Like they're still going to be a solid deck. Sky Striker, unfortunately I don't have that much hope. I mean, upstart to 3, that's kind of nice, I guess, in terms of just racking up the spell count in the graveyard. But, you know, Sky Striker has, in the last few months, notably have really tanked a lot. Just, like, no competitive success whatsoever. Hopefully that can change, especially with, like, Orca stuff, Sky Striker Orcas. I'm really looking forward to some tops here and there. As I mentioned again, I would love to put Orcas higher. I just think right now, you know, we don't have any kind of event to, of course, deal with, rather back it up with. Tearlaments, this one, honestly, I'm not sure where to put it. I think obviously getting the Millers, both of the Millers, is a really big hit. It was already a lot more high rolly as it was compared to like a year ago, of course. So, I mean, like for now, let's just put it at best of Rogue. I mean, or in between somewhere Rogue. I think, I'm not sure. I'm sure some people will, at least at the beginning stages, like try to really figure out how best to, in a different way to mill within Tearlaments. So for now, I'm gonna give them some hope and you know, put in that Rogue category. Again, let me know in the comments how you feel about how this deck is gonna fare. Trap Tricks is another deck I would just put in like, you know, the other Rogue. I think it had 1 regional top so far post Valiant Smashers. Definitely has also fallen off since it's, of course, very earlier this year when the deck first came out. Unchained, this is another interesting one where on the surface level, of course, it was just 1 card being put to 1 in their deck, but at the same time, you know, the red dog to 1 turns out is actually quite key in terms of, you know, their consistency, their ability to play through hand traps and whatnot, and just kind of reading through a lot of the posts as well in terms of, you know, the Unchained Duelist groups and like how they're recovering post ban list. I think a lot of them kind of lost hope and putting themselves in like the Rogue category. Of course, you still have things like, Tour Guide as 3, you have like Pot Prosperity at 3, but I think for now, sure, maybe they're at Rogue, maybe they're somewhere tier 2. Definitely, again, let me know how your thoughts are in terms of how Unchained got hit, but I do think it's still, of course, I don't think anyone can doubt it. It is a significant hit to them as well. Something like Hero, I'm still going to put this also somewhere here in the other Rogue category. I think Salad doesn't have any tops so far, so maybe we can put a slide down a little bit. But Hero has a few regional tops, actually. I mean, there's always going to be a lot of Hero players. From a Rogue standpoint, it's always going to be one of the more popular decks, but not too much to say there. Dragon Link also, let's just put it here for now. Maybe it's like somewhere tier 2. It kind of fell off in terms of YCS tops the last time around, and maybe even the one before that. I know they, like, Ib got, put to 1, or, like, it's not banned anymore, so I'm sure they can find some ways to play with that in terms of World Legacy build. I don't actually know if that's going to be, like, the standard way, or if it's the best way even, but, I mean, I'm sure that's not really fully solved yet anyways. It's only been, less than a day, but at the very least, if you really had to put your money on, which decks you can never doubt, and that's going to be Dragon Link, right? Konami loves dragons. Phantom Knight, you know what, let's just put this also at like the best of Rogue. It's actually gotten some regional tops as well, with like Phantom Knight plus Horus plus adventure package, like just a lot of good stuff in there. I think I think it's a pretty solid deck. Nothing has really changed for them either, right? So let's just keep it there. Dinos is another deck I would just put in like this, like other Rogue section. I think it's just, it does have, I think, a regional top or two. Usually kind of sneaks in there every now and then. Again, nothing too much has changed. Unfortunately, Mist did not come back to at least 2 this time around. So, unfortunately, we're going to have to keep it there. And then Chimera. You know what? Let's just also put them at like kind of like best of Rogue. Of course, with Unicorn at 2, they were actually still getting some regional level success, even like a YCS top actually. So I mean, maybe you just kind of like shuffle around here somewhere. Again, within each tier. Now, I'm not being too specific across which deck's particularly better than other, but I think Unicorn 3 definitely helps boost their consistency, and you know what, it's been actually pretty solid even with the Rise Art ban as well. Anyways, guys, that was it for my stab at the tier list post January ban list. So definitely, again, really let me know in the comments how you would shift things around. I'm really looking forward to engaging discussion with you all. So again, huge thanks to all of you for watching. A big thanks to my patrons as always for the continued support, and well, take care, guys.